All right, welcome back to More Than a Mortgage, where we help people build wealth through real estate, smart money moves, and insights from the front line. I'm here with my co-host Tom Merritt. Say hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
And our topic today is one that we just, get asked all the time. It's a good one. It's, should I rent or should I own? And I know you get that question quite a bit. I surely do. And
I think it's a great question, right? I think at the end of the day, everybody's situation is different. I think it's really difficult to just answer that question straight on. I think you need to really dive into, from a personal perspective, figure out where you are personally, professionally, what some of your goals are, what your vision is. And really at the end of the day, if I were to say one bottom line, is sit down with somebody who has an understanding and can give you the information that you need to make an informed decision. So I know you and I have talked just in general, just what's going on out there. I think a lot of the publicity from the media talk about interest rates are really high, values are going really high. It's really hard to purchase a place. But we've done a little bit of research. It's not just isolated to the purchasing market. It's the same with rents.
yeah. I mean, we've seen some things this year with the rental market that I have never seen ever, like when it comes to renting apartments here in the city.
It's crazy.
I mean, I think right now, I was looking at a stat this morning. I think the occupancy rate for rentals is 95.6% Chicago, which just means there's nothing out there.
Yeah,
right?
Almost worse than people that are trying to buy. And again, everyone's situation is different depending on the type of property you're looking for, depending on what you may or may not be trying to rent. But the reality is, in this city of Chicago, and I think maybe generally speaking nationwide, there's a shortage of housing.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And, going back to what you said earlier, I mean, there are times that Tom and I have sat down with multiple clients where we're not actually we're just giving them advice. So sometimes it's not even about going right in that. We've had clients that we've worked with that buy 3 or 4 years later because they just weren't ready yet, right? So I think that's going back to what you said earlier, is having that initial consultation, I guess you would absolutely call it, is having that initial consultation, sitting down. It doesn't make sense for everybody.
Well, let's dig into that. So when you say giving advice, or when you say, figuring out, what are some of the things that you would say, or just from an advice generally, that you come across or you say that would maybe, excuse the pun, lend itself to purchasing versus lending itself to renting? Like, what are some of those things and key questions that you ask your clients?
Yeah, I think really there's a lot of questions that we go through and talk into a deep dive on their finances and look at whether they're ready for it or not. But I think first and foremost is, do you transfer a lot with your job? Is this something that you're going to be here for a year or two? Because I think our timeline, what we usually recommend, you can probably vouch for this as well, but is if you're going to be in a place for 3 to 5 years, like that's usually a sweet spot for when we usually see the best ROI, return on investment. And, I think that's number one. Do you get transferred a lot? Are you going to be in Chicago for 3 to 5 years? And if the answer is no, like I'm probably not going to be here in the next 1 to 2 years, it might not make sense for you. So what else are you looking for in those meetings?
I think the other thing I'm looking for is just, have you put together a personal budget? As detailed or high level is, what are you comfortable spending on a monthly basis? Where are you at from a financial perspective? Do you feel comfortable with where you are and feel as though maybe you're not living month to month or paycheck to paycheck? Maybe you have some savings. It's a huge difference from one person to the next, and really can dictate whether or not it would or not make sense, potentially take that plunge into home ownership.
If I hear you correctly, if you're scraping up every last penny to your name to put your down payment and closing costs down, that's probably not the best scenario.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
no, I'd say get yourself in a position where after you purchase, you've got at least 3 months to 6 months at least of reserves, because you never know what can happen down the line. You want to make sure that if something unexpected happened, whether it's something with your car, whether it's something with the property, your dishwasher, you never know what's coming down the road. You don't want to have that event put you in a situation where you can't make that payment or you feel strapped. The worst thing I think for people, generally speaking, would be to feel the stress and the anxiety of that upcoming mortgage payment or that upcoming payment, whatever it may be, and whether or not you have the confidence that you're going to be able to make that.
Yeah, I love that. So step number one, before you even get to that point, is have a deep dive on your finances and your timeline and know like what your budget looks like, but also know what your future looks like. It's important to have all that buttoned up tight.
Absolutely.
To determine whether it makes more sense to rent. And look, as you can tell by the occupancy rate right now in Chicago with rents, there is the right situations for renters out there. I mean, I've done it myself. It was a 1 year, like I needed a place to be for that 1 year. And, it was the only time probably the last 20 years I rented, but I needed to be there. Right. So everybody's got a different scenario going on in life right now, but if you're not going to be there for, more than 3 years on a purchase, I think you start to find that there's cost involved and, commissions that you pay to real estate agents, and you might end up losing money at that scenario. Right?
I agree. I think the other thing is, and again, going back to what you originally said is, the first step was obviously identifying where you are, how you feel from a budget perspective financially. The second step is really sitting down with a professional and talking through your personal situation, because you may have the money available, say, for a down payment or the cash flow available to make that, but perhaps your credit isn't where you need it to be. That's something that we walk through. We talk through, where is your credit? Where do you want it to be? What are some steps that you could do to help put you maybe in a better situation? There's plenty of clients that I know we both talk with where, I think the best thing right now would be, instead of maybe looking to purchase right now, perhaps we spend the next 6 months to a year working on improving your credit. Or another thing, maybe saving for a little bit more of a down payment. Maybe it's, getting a little bit more of a history with regards to the job that they're currently in, if they're commission or they get bonus. These are some of the things that you may or may not know as an individual when you're starting to look into purchasing, that, again, a professional or someone who deals with it on a day-to-day basis will be able to help you with.
Or even maybe paying off that, 12 months or 13 months left on your car.
Yeah.
So that you feel more
comfortable cash flow
budget, right? I mean, we see people all the time with credit card debt. They've got 5 or 6 credit cards and, a car payment, student loan payments. And it's like, guys, like the reason your payment that you're looking for on your housing payment is so low is because you've got all this other debt stacked up on top of it. So let's formulate a plan around them, paying off the credit cards first, getting rid of maybe your car payment, and then keeping the student loans, because those are, long-term, and there's some, deductibility basis behind that. So, but having that plan is paramount.
I love that. You're putting together a plan.
Yes.
Right? So whether it's someone that can purchase today, next month, or next year, it's all putting together that plan so you know what it looks like. This is, again, the biggest purchase of your life. So you want to make sure you're prepared and ready to go whenever that may be.
So here's a fun stat that I pulled up this morning. Rents right now is, as of May of 2025 in Chicago, are averaged out at $2,337 a month. Wow. It's actually almost $300 higher than the national average.
A little bit higher than when I started renting way back in the day as well.
Great. I think my first place that I rented out was maybe around $1,100 a month.
I think I was $750, but that just shows how old I am.
So the rent growth right now is 5.7% year over year.
Wow.
So that's, as you can see, it's not getting any easier to rent. And like we've seen some of the things that happen on a purchase where you have multiple offers happening on rents right now.
Absolutely.
So who's happy in that scenario?
Nobody.
The landlord.
Well, yeah.
The landlord's happy in that scenario. So, Tom, as far as buying's concerned, and I want to go back to something you just said, because I think the planning phase is big, but when you're talking about the timeline to doing all this,
yeah,
like what do you recommend? Like I see a lot of people right now kind of going backwards, where they're out with their agents looking at places, and then it's just a casual look, but we all know that like real estate's not casual. It's more emotional than anything.
Absolutely.
So as soon as you identify that place where you're like, oh my gosh, like I could see my family in this, I could see myself or my family in this place. Like then it's all of a sudden like a fire drill where, hey, I'm like, do you have your pre-approval letter? No, I don't. And it just seems backwards. So when would you recommend a renter or a move-up buyer or whomever looking into that process to sit down with a professional like you or anyone else out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think for everybody, it's a different situation, but I generally would say on the short end, 6 months before you want to be where you want to be. Now, perhaps it's years in advance. I think putting together that plan and getting things situated can't hurt. Whether you've never known or seen what's on your credit, knowing what you need from a cash flow perspective, knowing what you need from a down payment. I mean, there's plenty of people that I've spoken with that said, yeah, we're not looking yet because I haven't saved 20%. Well, another episode, another time, but the biggest myth is you need 20% to put down. In fact, waiting for that 20%, you talked about earlier, prices going up 5% in rent. Well, that's probably pretty close to what the appreciation year over year. So how much money are you losing out if it makes sense for you to purchase now versus in the future? So, I think, what do they say for planting a tree? The best day was yesterday. The next best day is today. Yeah. I think similarly, it's very similar with regards to getting at least an idea or an understanding of where you stand financially from a lending perspective, so you can make some informed decisions and figure out what is your timeline. Again, is it in the next few months? Is it in the next few years? Or, perhaps it's not for you. Again, going back to because maybe your job is something that you're looking to potentially transfer and move out of the state. Those are different reasons. But again, at least getting that information so you understand where you stand personally is invaluable.
And I'll tell you what, I see it all the time. Like we, one of my top clients I've worked with for a long time, done multiple purchases for him over the years. And it's a long story on how we got here, but he went under contract and then called me because I know the drill. But once we got everything ready and he finally applied and got his documents into me, voila, he had identity theft.
Oh,
and it was an AT&T card that someone had opened up on the south side of Chicago. And lo and behold, he normally has 800 plus credit scores. Every time we work together, ends up having like a 700.
Again, making the assumption. And then, so what ended up happening?
Well, I mean, we went through most of the process where he had to go pay that debt off, like reactively. And then we turned around and we were able to update his score. So he kind of got lucky there, but that's kind of where we're going with getting out in front of it. Like, I think if you're going to play the game smart, being proactive, and doing things ahead of the curve, getting your finances squared away, whether you rent or you buy, getting your finances squared away, and at a minimum, sitting down and doing a budget and talking with a professional. Now, if you're going to rent, like, doing a budget's important, right? Regardless. But if you're going to buy, sitting down with someone, going through that ahead of the curve, don't be reactionary. Don't turn around and, go out shopping for homes if you don't even have a letter in place. Now, some people will argue, and it's a whole nother episode as well, but hey, I got a letter, it's online, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the consultative approach. Like, I love working with people that sit down with me. And like, we just did our deck recently, and like, I had 2 or 3 different options out there to go with. And, the one that I chose was the one that sat down with me and really talked through the logistics behind product and, how it's all going to work and what the timeline looks like. And that made me feel like cared for. It made me understand what I was getting into.
That's it. You understand.
Yes.
You haven't know what's going on and what the process
was. Like, half the things that were going past me were being said. So like, that was a big turning point for me. It was like, that's how I do my business. That's what I want to do.
Well,
it's a process.
To the yin and the yang to you with regards to your client that, had gone through the process, didn't feel the need to quote unquote get pre-approved before. On the flip side, and I know you've had plenty, but I've had a couple clients recently said, listen, I'm just reaching out. I want to get prepared. I want to understand what the process looks like. And we sat down, and what they figured out is just because they have a large amount of student loans doesn't necessarily mean that they can't purchase. And that when they really worked through all the details and all the numbers, they recognized or realized that purchasing now with regards to both monthly obligation as well as potential for gaining equity and return on investment, as opposed to waiting 1 or 2 years, they decided to pull the trigger and move forward now. And now we're in a place and have already gained some appreciation, and from a cash flow perspective are in a better place than they were before. So again, it's really understanding what works for you, but really having that consultative approach to help you figure out what information needs to be, revealed so that you can make some informed decisions.
So just to kind of recap, I mean, yes, the pros of renting, there are pros. We
Absolutely
talked about it. Greater flexibility. You don't have to worry about your lifestyle, your job moves, things of that nature. It's easier to break a lease than it is to break a mortgage, because you can't do that.
Nope.
Right? Unless you sell your place. You don't have any property taxes. You don't have any major repairs. You don't have any maintenance responsibilities. The buying pros on the flip side.
And one more thing I think to add to that is maybe if you're trying to explore an area, maybe you've never been to Chicago before and you want to check out and just see, do I want to live downtown? Do I want to live out in the suburbs? Is this the city for me that I want to own? It might make sense for you to kind of get the feel. I think is another advantage.
I just want you. How about some buying pros? What do you think as far as owning? And I know you're biased.
Yeah.
You've been for a long time.
I've owned for a long time.
You just read it recently. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think thing you just said.
Exactly. I think, buying has its pros as well. I think it has its cons. Like anything in life, we need to make sure from a maintenance perspective, you need to make sure that you're taking care of things. But from a buying perspective, I think it's a great way to create wealth. I think the reality is that first and foremost, when you get into a loan or a mortgage and you're comfortable with that monthly obligation, generally speaking, that payment is not going to increase, at least not substantially year over year, whereas your rent could. So you have some more stability. In addition to that, the biggest thing I feel is the appreciation, or the ability to create wealth through your asset appreciating. And we've seen unprecedented growth from the appreciation perspective over the course of the last 5 years, just because of the supply demand, because of the the values of these homes going up. It's been uncanny how much you're able to create wealth or return on your investment as a result.
I think one other piece, there's a couple more pros, but with owning, you could kind of do it yourself. You can paint whatever you want to do. You can change things up the way you want to change it. You don't have to go to your landlord to get permission to do all that stuff, which, good, bad, or indifferent. You go in and improve an apartment, your landlord is happy again. So, how about tax advantages? Anything that, absolutely see it from that perspective?
Again, I think, depending on your personal situation and what you have, I know both you and I, obviously being married, having children, from a deductions perspective, up to $10,000 currently with the tax law from a property tax perspective is tax deductible, meaning that comes off of your income. So you're not taxed on it. All interest up to $750,000 on your current loan, assuming that you go that high, is all 100% tax deductible. So again, this helps with regards to lowering what your tax liability would be. So in turn, it helps create it. Now, again, single, maybe without many other deductions, it may make sense to still take the standard deduction, but generally speaking, it's going to be a tax advantage. You're going to save money.
Yep. And the one piece, so I know we're both a little biased on owning.
Yep.
But the one piece that I, love about owning a home is that it's a forced savings plan.
Yes.
Didn't
even talk about that.
We didn't even talk about that. So like every month that you make a payment towards your mortgage, your principal and interest, principal deduction takes place. So at a minimum, you are saving money just by having the principal reduction each month.
Yeah.
And while it might not seem a lot, depending on what type of loan you're in, it's a savings. So you're adding an additional $200 to $500 a month into your forced savings account, which you will get back later on down the road when you sell them.
Absolutely. I know that you had the stat with regards to average rent. I think you said in Chicago it's about $2,300, $2,350. We talked about this earlier today. There is a stat with regards to what the average mortgage payment was. What's that?
Mortgage payment was about $1890.
1890, and that does not. And again, everyone's situation is different, so you may have.
It was based off of I think the average sales price in Chicago is around like 340, 350. Albeit some people would argue that right now, but Chicago's a huge city, so it kind of takes up the entire Chicagoland area. But what that was factoring in was 350 purchase price with 20% down.
Okay.
Not that you have to put 20% down, but that's where that $1,800 to $1,900.
So let's hypothetically say you put 10% down, maybe even 5%. You're probably going to be somewhat similar in terms of 2,300. But that's cash flow. And again, cash flow, you need to make sure you take into consideration. But to your point, in that $2,300 or $1,800 from that stat, you've got at least $200 to $400 per month that's going towards the principal reduction, which is a forced savings. Plus, you do have those tax deductions. So between those, your net effective payment is quite substantially different if you really were to take those into account.
Yeah, I love it. So in summary, at the end of the day, everybody's situation is going to look a little bit different when you're talking about renting versus owning. But again, you don't know that until you actually have a sit down with a professional to discuss this. And it might not be just a mortgage professional. I mean, we recommend sitting down with your financial advisor, sitting down with your accountant, having conversations with people that are in the business. The mortgage professional is always going to give you the right information around the mortgage. The financial advisor is going to make sure that you have the means to do it, right? And you don't have a financial advisor, the next best thing I would say is looking at guys like you and I that are doing this every day and see a lot of people's scenarios and can give people sound advice. I will tell you, our business is, there's such a thing as called sound advice, and there's such a thing called trying to get the sale done. And what we really focus on is advising our people on how to create wealth.
And what that looks like, in my personal humble opinion, with any profession, is willing to sit down and talk through the process and everything that goes into it and what the pros and the cons are. If you're asked just to put something online, upload documents, and they just tell you, quote unquote, you can afford this. If a financial advisor just says, tell me what money you have and send it to me and don't take you through the process. If a real estate agent just says, yeah, just meet me at the property and we'll go see, that's not someone that's necessarily in your best interest. You want someone that understands what your vision is, what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, so they can bring it all together and really help put the plan in place and help you achieve that next, whether it's financial independence, whether that's, retirement someday, return on investment, whatever it may be. But it's super crucial that you have someone working for you, not in their own interests.
And I think it's important to note that it's people probably think, and I think it's the fear coming from renters is like, I don't want to get committed to something. Like, there's no commitment.
None.
And there's no cost. In most cases, I don't know anyone like in our business. Maybe they do. I don't. There's no cost to sit down and have a conversation.
Nope.
Right. And I think that's where people get misled and they don't take that extra step to sit down and do the consulting with a professional. They think it's going to cost them something. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free advice.
Yes. From a professional, not online, because everyone's situation is different. So if anything, take some time, invest in yourself, and put yourself in a consultation with a professional in whatever area that you're exploring.
Guys, listen, if you have any comments or questions or want to reach out to us, send us a DM. We'd love to get back to our anybody that's seeking advice. And also, get out there, follow us on social media. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We are More Than a Mortgage and are happy to help anybody that has any questions around this topic.
I'm Mike Black. And I'm Tom Merritt with More Than a Mortgage. See you next time.